So, good afternoon to all in day 2 program of our International Faculty Development Program by FIRMS Society. I extend my warm welcome to all the dignitaries, distinguished speaker, faculty, fraternity, and the participants in day 2 program of this FGP. Thank you for joining us today online faculty development program. Myself, Dr. Lakshmi Punia, Assistant Professor, Department of Mathematics and Statistics, Manipal University, Jaipur. I will be hosting today's online faculty development program, and I trust and pray that all is good with you and your family during this difficult time as COVID 19 is still peaking around many countries. Today, we are having one invited talk by the eminent speaker of the day, and uh, we have a guest of honor. So, I kindly request all the participants to mute your video and audio. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat box. I will bring up them after the presentation and we will have a short discussion on them. Now, I would like to invite our guest of honor of the day, Professor A.K. Sani, for his speech. Before his speech, I want to give a brief introduction. He is working as an Associate Dean and Associate Professor Equi Tech, Equi University, Jaipur. He did his PhD from NIT Kurukshetra, MTech from MNIT Jaipur, BE from MBM Jodhpur. He has 20 plus years of experience in teaching and research fields. So, welcome to Professor A.K. Sani. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Professor Punia, for the introduction. A very good afternoon to all the dignitaries, FDB speakers, and dear participants. Actually, unfortunately, I'm not able to on my video. I'm using my mobile phone and with very low bandwidth connectivity. So please excuse me for that.
Okay, sir.
Uh, in this era of information revolution, mathematics and its analysis have a great role to play in every domain of our life. Applied mathematics involves the application of mathematics to the problems which arise in various areas like science, engineering, or other diversified areas, like the development of new or improved methods to meet the challenges of new issues or problems in the society to solve them. The present FDP aims to highlight the recent developments in a variety of issues in mathematics. This FDP is expected to provide a prominent platform for the faculty members, researchers interested in pursuing problems in the field of applied mathematics to address the real world issues or problems. We view applied mathematics as the application of mathematics to the real world problems with the dual goal of explaining observed phenomena and predicting new as yet observed phenomena. Therefore, the emphasis is on both the mathematics, e.g., the development of new methods to meet the challenges of new issues and the real world. The problems come from various applications such as physical and biological sciences, engineering, and social sciences. Their solutions require knowledge of various branches of mathematics such as tensor calculus, differential geometry, general relativity, cosmology, etc. I'm sure after attending the pioneering lectures, participants would be able to understand the recent development in mathematics, the application of mathematics in the real world to develop a conceptual approach to teaching mathematics and identify the areas of current and ongoing research in mathematics. I'm very thankful to the organizers and congratulations to them for organizing such a wonderful faculty development program for the faculty members and researchers. And a special thanks to Dr. Narendra Kumar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words and support in organizing this FDP. Now, I would like to invite our today invited speaker, Professor Jafar Ehsan, for his speech in our Day 2 program of this FDP. As many of us know that Professor Ehsan is a well-known speaker and well-known researcher, I am giving a brief introduction of Professor Ehsan. He is the recipient of Distinguished Scientist Award in 2020, Asian Education Award 2020 for contribution of education community, Lifetime Achievement Award 2019, Nissan-e-Azad 2017 for promotion of science in Urdu, the International Einstein Award for Scientific Achievements in 2011, Rashtriya Gaurav Award 2007, Shiksha Ratna Puraskar 2007, the Best Citizen of India Award 2006, 2007 and 2008, continuously 3 years. He is member of Research Board of Advisors, American Biography Institute USA, and the lifetime president of Cancer Society of India, well-known society. He had been the editor-in-chief of Aligarh Bulletin of Mathematics in 2012 to 2015, editor-in-chief of the Journal of Cancer Society of India in 2010 to 2012, managing editor of Aligarh Bulletin of Mathematics 1998 to 2012. Professor Ehsan is the editor of Journal of Mathematics and Journal of Interpolation and Approximation in Scientific Computing, and he is the member of editorial board of the Global Journal of Advanced Research on the Classical and Modern Geometries, International e-Journal of the Numerical Analysis and Related Topics, Tarif Journal of Mathematics and Statistics, Islamic University of Gaza Journal of Natural and Engineering Studies, Bulletin and Journal of Calcutta Mathematical Society, reviewer of mathematical reviews, and also referee of the various journals of the mathematics and physics. Professor Ehsan is the president of Anjuman Farooq E-Science Association for Promotion of Science, Aligarh branch, a member of Urdu Core Committee of the Vigyan Prasar, Government of India, and has been a council member of the Indian Association of General Relativity and Gravitation from 2002 to 2006, a visiting associate of Inter-University Center of Astronomy and Astrophysics, IUCA, very good research institute, Pune in 1996 to 2005, a UGC visiting professor at Sardar Patel University, Vallabh Vidyanagar in April 2004 to 2005, and visiting professor at University Sains Islam Malaysia USIM from October to December 2016. At present, Professor Ehsan is a research fellow at the Institute Sains Islam USIM Malaysia and the visiting professor of the mathematics at Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad. He was course coordinator and convener of the various refresher courses and national and international conferences in mathematics held at Aligarh Muslim University. He is also a life member of the Indian Association for General Relativity and Gravitation, Calcutta Mathematical Society, Indian Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics India, Indian Mathematical Society, and Tensor Society of India, a founder member of International Electronic Engineering Mathematical Society, Egypt. Professor Ehsan's achievements have been listed in MARQUIS WHO in World USA for 2011 to 2015 edition. Professor Zafar Ehsan received his education from Aligarh Muslim University AMU and obtained his BSc honors in 1968, MSc in 1973, MPhil in 1976, and PhD in 1979 in mathematics. He joined the Department of Mathematics at AMU in 1978 as a lecturer, became reader in 92, and served as a professor from 2000 to 2016, worked as a chairman of department during 2012 to 2015. Professor Jafar Ehsan has been working on gravitational waves exact solution of Einstein equations, symmetries of the space-time, and geometric structures in general relativity. He has so far published 105 research papers in national and international journals of repute. He has participated in 96 conferences in India and abroad and has presented his work as an invited speaker in 74 conferences. He has written 5 lecture notes entitled Astronomy in 1982, Relativity Theory in 1994, Mechanics 1999, Mathematical Methods in 2001, and the Tetrad Formalism 2006, and has published 7 books entitled Differential Equation and Their Application, Vector Analysis, Mathematical Methods, Tensor Analysis with Applications, Tensor Mathematics for the Differential Geometry and Relativity, The Potential of Fields in Einstein Theory of Gravitation, and Tozihi Farhan, Glossary of the Mathematics in Urdu. Some of his books are prescribed as textbooks in the most of the Indian universities and some foreign universities. His book on differential equation, third edition, 17th printing June 2019, is the best seller since 1999. Professor Jafar Ehsan has visited Pakistan in 1980, Italy in 1985, Bangladesh in 1986, Libya in 89, Iran in 2004, Japan in 2007, Russia in 2010, and Malaysia between 2011, 2016, and 2017 to deliver invited talks at international conferences. He has also been delivering lecture at a number of refresher courses on mathematics as well as popular lectures on the mathematics held at AMU and other universities. His current research interest, apart from the general relativity and the gravitation, is on quark and science in modern cosmology, and he has delivered public lectures on this topic at a number of places like University of Tarbet, Tarbet, Iran, University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, International Islamic University, Kuantan, Malaysia, University Saint Islam, Nilai, Malaysia, Vallabh Vidyanagar, Gujarat, Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, Integral University, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, Islamia College, Gorakhpur, and many, many more. He has delivered so many talks in national and international universities. Some other achievements, like he has interviewed for the Doordarshan India TV network, which was telecast by the Nagpur Doordarshan in February 2012. He has also interviewed for the radio, which was aired by the Sardar Patel University Community Radio Station FM 90.4 India in the first week of December. These are the few achievements of the Dr. Zafar Ehsan Uli. There are so many achievements of Professor Jafar Ehsan. Welcome, sir. Welcome to give your talk.
First of all, let me thank the organizers, particularly Mr. Lakshmi Purnia, as well as Dr. A.K. Saini, Dr. Narendra Kumar, and his team for providing me an opportunity to give a journal talk, because I have been told that the participants are not of one discipline, they are multidisciplinary particles. So I decided to give a journal lecture so that everybody could understand and appreciate. So I will try to skip more complicated technical details so that the participants will not get bored in this lecture. So, well, the first slide is now, I'm sure it is visible to all of you. It is about that the invited talk given at the faculty development program and so on. And the title, now you can change the one. Next slide.
Navani sir, next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
No, sir. It is
Well,
changed
okay.
now.
So the title is here, Einstein's general relativity is still the most fascinating theory. More than 100 years has been passed when Einstein gave this theory in 1915. So it is a 100-year-old theory, and still it is valid and a challenging one. So many challenging issues are coming over here. Well, this is my affiliation. My name is here Zafar Ahsan, and this is Ahsan, not Ahsan. There is a difference between the two. Ahsan means the best. Ahsan means there's something I am favoring you. So meanings are different. So my name is Zafar Ahsan. Zafar means victory. Ahsan means the best. Well, the affiliation is presently I am a visiting professor at the Maulana Azad National Urdu University, Hyderabad, as well as I am a research fellow at the Institute of Science, Institute Saints Islam. It is written in Malay language, which means Institute of Islamic Sciences, USIM, Malaysia. The first slide, please. Next one. Yes, the next slide. Well, here you will see the two figures. So this is what I do not want, because if you put it on the slideshow, then each figure will come one by one. Now both the figures will come together. Anyway, on the left-hand side, you will see the Einstein. There is a picture of Einstein, and a quote of Einstein is also there. It says that everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. And this is what we are following in our education system. See the right-hand slide. Right-hand slide says that there are so many animals are here. Yeah, you can see the slide, the picture on the right-hand side. It is depicting that monkey is there, some birds are there, fish is there, elephant is there, and as well as seal fish are also there. So the person is asking for a fair selection. Everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So this is what we are following. We are not worried about bother about the ability of the person. We have to, everybody has to solve the same question. Anyway, the next slide, please. Well, Einstein lived between March 14, 1879 to April 18, 1955. So another quote of Einstein is here: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well. So I will try to justify this quote of Einstein. Einstein has given two theories, and they were developed in two phases. The first one was the special theory of relativity, which was given by Einstein in 1905, and this adapted the concept of inertial frame to the basic laws of constancy of light, dispensing with the concept of absolute space and time, that is the Galilean mechanics, or the space and time of Galilean, and that is that of Newtonian mechanics. So here in special theory of relativity, things are moving with a constant speed. There is no acceleration here. So if we add acceleration in special theory of relativity, we will get general theory of relativity. This is a rough description. In fact, the general theory of relativity, which was given by Einstein in 1916, this is the extension of special theory of relativity. And here, instead of matter moving through a passive space-time continuum, general theory of relativity asserts that the presence of matter should distort the space-time. Next slide, please. Now here are two pictures, one on the left corner of your screen and another on the bottom corner of this, right bottom corner. The first picture, which the first picture on the right, on the left side of the corner, there are two pictures here. The first one is, it is a picture of two-dimensional flat space or two-dimensional Euclidean space. And we all know that the distance between two points, we all know that the shortest distance between 2 points in a Euclidean space is a straight line. So is a straight line is here. See the figure just below it. So as soon as I put a mass in the Euclidean space, the space become curved. So now the straight line, which was the shortest distance between the 2 points, will be no longer a straight line, it will be a curved line. So this curvedness of the space is due to the mass, or is due to the matter, or is due to the gravity. So this is the gravity which actually curving the space. Now look at the figure which is on the right corner. Here I have put three different objects having less mass, more mass, and then more mass. You see the picture, the bigger the mass, more the space is covered. So that is, stronger the gravity, the space will become more curved. So this is the gravity. Actually, the gravity is there which curves the space time. So please, next slide. Well, so this distortion of the space, this causes the deflection of material particles and the light from their classical path. Einstein predicted that the starlight which passes the limb of the sun on its way to the earth should be deflected by 1.75 arc per second. So now look at the figure which is over here, the diagram which is over here, the picture which is over here on the right corner, right hand corner, the sun is there. Okay? So sun is a massive object. So as soon as the sun is there, the space near the sun is become curved. So how much is it curved? So we all know that the light travels in a straight line. So since the space is curved, so the light will not travel, will no longer be travel in a straight line. So it will get bent towards the sun or toward the object. Here the object is sun. So now you clearly see the figure and find out one is a straight line, which is the observed star, but the actual is a star on the left hand side. So there is some sort of deflection. So this deflection, Einstein predicted that this deflection is 1.750 arc of a second. So he proposed this deflection theoretically. So experimentally, but this has to be verified experimentally. So how it can be done? So Einstein was very fortunate that in 1916 he gave his theory, and in 1919, just after 3 years, there was a total solar eclipse. Because in the day there is always there is a sun, and night there is no sun, so you cannot find out how the light is get deflected if it is passing near the sun. So the best way is that if there is a total solar eclipse, only then one can see how the light is got bent. So he was very much fortunate. So just after 3 years, a total solar eclipse was held, and at that time, an astrophysicist whose name is Sir Arthur Stanley Eddington was there, and he organized a program to find out the experimental verification of this Einstein result. So he actually find out whatever Einstein has predicted theoretically, it was verified experimentally. So this is one of the three crucial tests of general theory of relativity, that is the deflection of light, which is passing through a gravitating mass. And how much it was get reflected if it is in the case of sun, so it was 1.756. So this curious property of the space-time was turned out into the news headline of all the newspapers. And on April 2nd, 1921, when Einstein visited USA, the next day Times, the newspaper Times that was published from the New York, that newspaper put the headline as Einstein, space and time are wedded, matter and energy declared interchangeable, matter curves the space-time, affecting all objects moving therein. So this actual deflection of light, next slide please, this actual deflection of light, it also predicted another thing, Yet another thing is that the orbits which are that the planets which are moving around the sun, their orbits are not closed. Orbits are not closed means that if I started from this point, then again I come to this point, then it will become closed. And if I deviate it from the beginning point, then it will get the orbit is not closed one. So this happens in case of the planet Mercury, because it is very near to the sun. So look at the figure which is over here, the diagram which is over here. You will find out P1, P2, P3. So P1, if the planet Mercury is moving, this is sun, yellow color object is sun and the purple color object is Mercury. So Mercury is moving around the sun. So if it is started from the point number P1, if the orbit is closed, it should have come to the point P1 again. But it is not so in practice. Practically, it is not so. It is returning to another point, which is P2. So again, in another revolution, it will not come to P2. It come to another point. That is P3. So when the planet Mercury is nearest to the sun, then it is said to be at the perihelion. So in fact, the perihelion of the Mercury, planet Mercury, advance. And this advance is very, very small. It is only 43 seconds of arc per century. The deviation is 43 seconds of arc per century. Although it is a very small quantity, but it shows that the orbit is not closed. So this is the place where the Newton theory ends and relativity begins. So Newtonian theory cannot explain that why there is a deflection, why there is a deviation in the orbit of the planet Mercury. But nowadays, so many strong sources of gravitation have been detected. So the same phenomena is more dramatically seen in the binary pulsar, whose number is PSR 1913 plus 16. So where the periastron means when it is close to the another one. That is when it is the nearest one, by about 4.2 degree per year. Now this amount is very good, 4.2 degree per year. So this means that the orbits of the stars, planets are not close. Now what we mean by binary pulsar? So pulsars are two stars which are rotating around themselves. So one star is here, one star is here. They are rotating about each other. And in each rotation, they are emitting some radio sources in terms of pulse, just like the pulse we feel here. It is like this. So that's why they are giving the name pulse. So pulsar means pulsating radio sources. You know? So pulsating radio sources are there. So two binaries are there. So if they are revolving, this means their orbit should be closed. But since they are very massive object, so their orbit is not closed. And this deviation is actually 4.2 degrees per year. So it is a very good amount. One can go easily. Next slide, please. So from 1915 to 1960, general relativity attracted the attention largely of mathematicians. It was taught all over the world at mathematics department as a part of differential geometry and classical mechanics. It was not taught as a separate subject, but as a part of differential geometry and classical mechanics. Physicists thought that the observations were not sensitive enough to check the prediction of general relativity. But everyone agreed that the general relativity was a very beautiful theory. And in fact, up to 1960, general relativity was like a beautiful princess whom everybody admired, but no one wanted to marry. So, but all these things, all this scenario changed in mid-60s by the discovery of pulsars and quasars. Pulsars, I have told you, that pulsating radio sources, and quasar are Cauchy-Steiner radio sources, and the concept of black holes. So all these objects, they indicated the presence of a strong gravitational field. And nowadays, so next slide, please. So since then, Since then, the hold of Einstein's general relativity on the rest of the physics is strengthened as the theory successfully tested on each and every of its predictions. So, general relativity has changed our perception of the universe in which we live and thus revolutionized the whole physics. In recent years, general relativity has become an integral and indispensable part of the modern physics. This theory links the gravitation and the structure of the space-time. So there are many appreciable connections between general relativity, particle physics, and string theory. And at the same time, there are a number of exciting astrophysical applications of general relativity. So some astrophysical applications, I'm sure you will listen from Dr. Pradhan, Dr. Sahu, and Dr. Farooq Rahman. They are also working in astrophysics as well as in general theory of relativity. So they will tell you something more about it. So there are a number of exciting astrophysical applications of general relativity, such as black holes, gravitational lensing, the production and detection of gravitational waves, the Big Bang, the early universe, the late universe, the cosmological constant, the dark matter, dark energy, and so on. There are many, many connections. So, of course, in this 1 hour lecture, I cannot explain each and every application. So I will take few of them so that I can realize you that still the Einstein theory is the best theory of gravity. So next slide, please. So first, let us see what is a black hole. So this is a word which was coined by a relativist, John Archibald Wheeler. He was from United States of America. So he gave the name to this particular object, the black hole. So what is a black hole? So as I have shown you earlier in the slides, that if you are given a Euclidean space and if you put a mass on it, the space becomes curved. Okay. And due to the curvedness of the space, the straight lines are no longer be the straight line, they are the curved line, and they will bend towards the object. Now, we have seen this in case of the sun, that the deflection was 1.75 arc of a second. But there are many stars in the sky which are more massive than the sun. Maybe 10 times massive, maybe 20 times massive. So more massive means more gravity. So now if there is a very massive object is there, and since the gravity is there, so gravity is too much, so the space will become more and more curved. So what will happen to the straight line which is passing near it? It will become a curved line. Okay. And that curved line, sometime it get into the object also. And it is not going away like this, but it will turn into or it will fall into the object. So the object become invisible. Why? Now you can see me because light is coming to on my face, and it is get deflected, and then you are receiving it. If somehow or the other, if I absorb all the light, then you cannot see me. I will become invisible. Those are same cases with the black holes. That there is some object whose gravity is very strong. It is so strong that even the light cannot escape it. So light goes into it. When the light goes into it, nothing is visible. So that's why it is called a black hole. Now, once it is not visible, then how to detect it? This is the problem, because seeing is the believing. If you see an object, you say, well, it is there. If you don't see it, you cannot say. So seeing is the believing. So once this object is not visible because it is absorbing all of its light, the light cannot escape from its gravity. So it is invisible. So how to detect it? It is a very simple way. We look the behavior of a star which is revolving around an invisible companion. Every star is rotating some other star. This is in nature, it is the common practice. Most of the stars, they are rotating about some other star. Just like as all the planets are moving around the sun, as well as also there are some stars which are moving around some stars, just like binary stars. So if a star, just look at the motion of the star, which is moving around an invisible companion. So this is an star, it is moving around an invisible companion. And in each rotation, this star is losing its mass. So this means that there is some strong source of gravity sitting over here, which is sucking its mass. So in each revolution, or in each revolution, the star losing its mass. This means there is some object which is sitting over here whose gravity is very, very strong. As well as if this from this point high energy radiation is emitted. High energy radiation means the X-rays are emitted. So if the X-rays are emitted and the star is losing its mass, star is losing its mass when it is revolving around its, when it is making a complete orbit, this means that there is a black hole is sitting. So if you look at the diagram which is over here, the picture on the left hand side which is here, you will, this is the star which is losing its mass. The star is there, which is losing its mass, revolving around an invisible companion. And this is the jet of the radiation which is coming out of it. So this is the X-rays, high energy radiation. So this is the X-rays. So this is how we can detect the presence of the black hole. So this was theoretically possible. And the people are, these astrophysicists as well as, or you can say the scientists, they are very crazy people. So on April 10, 2019, almost 100 years after Einstein has given the his general theory of relativity. So there was a telescope whose name is Event Horizon Telescope. They released the first ever image of a supermassive black hole in the Messier 87 galaxy, which is a great milestone of astrophysics and confirmed the prediction of the Einstein theory of relativity. Now, what is this? Messier 87. So Messier was a French astronomer who find out the catalog, or who obtained the catalog of almost all the galaxies. So massive galaxies. So those galaxies, that catalog is known as the Messier catalog. So this is the 87th entry of that Messier catalog. So in this galaxy, the scientists find out, the astrophysicists with the help of the Event Horizon Telescope, they obtain the first ever image. You see, it is very difficult to find out the image. A thing which is not visible, how can you find out its image? Image can be obtained only when the things are visible. So things are not visible, even then they have produced they have photographed it. So look at the photograph which is over here. Please, just next slide, please. Yeah, look at this one. So this is the picture on the right hand side of your screen. This is the picture of a black hole. This is the image of a black hole which was photographed by the Event Horizon Telescope on April 10, 2019. So this supermassive black hole is situated in the Messier 87 galaxy. So Messier was a French astronomer who who prepared a catalog of a number of galaxies. So this is the 87th entry of that particular catalog. So this, of course, is a great milestone of astrophysics and confirmed the prediction of Einstein theory of relativity. And just last year, the Physics Nobel Prize was given to Roger Penrose, Sir Roger Penrose, for his extraordinary work on black hole physics. So on black hole physics, the black hole, which was the prediction of Einstein theory of relativity, Roger Penrose had got the Nobel Prize. And I am fortunate that I have met with Roger Penrose in 1986. But now, of course, I was very young. So in Bangladesh, I have got to meet him. And I spent with him 4 days there. I was there in connection with some conference. Anyway, so this is the one consequence of general theory of relativity. Another one is, please come to the next slide. Well, the next one is the gravitational lensing. Now, just we have seen that more the object is massive, more the gravity is there. More the gravity is there, more the space is covered. This means that if we have got objects which can what should I say? The objects are so massive that if the light is passing through near them, then the light will not go away from this, but they will go on inside them. They will get attracted towards them. So that's why the birth of the black hole was there. So now instead of that particular object, consider a galaxy. So galaxy consists of a number of stars. In our galaxy in which we are living, some 200 billion stars are there. So it is a very massive object. So now this gravity, this galaxy can act as a lens. So look at the figure which is over here. In the middle of the figure, the galaxy is there. So it is a very massive object. And on the our Earth is on the left hand side. So from here, one can see the very distant star, which is quasar, of course. Because what is happening there? The light is get deflected due to this heavy object. The heavy object here is the galaxy. So due to the strong gravity of this galaxy, the light is not traveling in a straight line. It is get deflected. So it is acting some sort of a lens. So this phenomena is known as the gravitational lensing. So due to this phenomena, we are able to look deep into the universe. So how deep? Quasars are supposed to be at the boundary of the universe. So we can see the distant quasars with the help of the phenomena of gravitational lensing, which is the outcome of the general theory of relativity. Next slide, please. Now, another consequence of general relativity is this one, the phenomena of gravitational waves. So this is a concept which is predicted by Einstein theory of relativity. So now before I go to this gravitational wave, I will let you know what we have, an electromagnetic wave or electromagnetic radiation. Now you can see me very well, and this is due to the electromagnetic wave. This is due to the electromagnetic phenomena. What is electromagnetic phenomena? That when the charges are accelerated, electromagnetic radiation is there, or electromagnetic wave is produced. The similar case is with the gravity. When the masses are accelerated, whatever wave is produced, that is known as the gravitational waves. So Einstein's equations or Einstein theory, they have got many similarity with the electromagnetism. So it comes as to no surprise that in Maxwell's theory, they predict the presence of electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic wave. General theory also give the prediction of gravitational wave or gravitational radiation. So when an object accelerates, it creates ripple in the space-time, just like as a boat causes ripples in a pond. So, but these are very, very weak. They are extremely weak. Gravitational phenomena itself is also very weak. It is some 10 raised to power minus 40 times weaker than the electromagnetic wave. So this is a very weak. So how can we detect it? It is very difficult to detect them. So in laboratory, the detection of gravitational waves was started in 1960 by an astrophysicist whose name was Joe Weber. So he actually first started the idea that how to detect gravitational wave in the laboratory, as we have detected the electromagnetic wave in the laboratory, or as we have produced the electromagnetic wave in the laboratory. Now you see the power of the electromagnetic radiation or electromagnetic wave. All these communications, television communication, all these the Zoom or what you call this one as the Google Meet, they are all due to this electromagnetic radiation. If the electromagnetic radiation was not there, it will not be possible to communicate like this. So this is some form of energy. So the people are interested in gravitational waves because if somehow or the other they can generate the gravitational wave in the laboratory, then the energy problem is solved because matter is always there. Mass is always available on the earth in plenty. For charges, you have to accelerate them, but you have to got some charges, electric charges, magnetic charges, then you have to create something, some sort of a complicated thing. But here the matter is available on the earth. It is available in a large amount, in a very huge amount. Now, only the thing is how to accelerate it. So in laboratory, it is not possible to accelerate it. But sky is the best laboratory. Sky is the very best laboratory because there are so many heavy objects which are present in the star. For example, pulsars. So the people start studying about the behavior of the pulsars. So they start behaving finding out the behavior of the pulsar. And the one of the most promising candidate for this study was pulsar PSR 1913 plus 16. So this is the number because there are so many stars, you cannot name every star. So only they can number the stars. Numbers are infinite, so we can give infinite number. So well, this is the number. So the two pulsars, when the two pulsars are rotating around each other, so since they are very massive, so in this course, the lot of something is emitted in the form of wave. So that's something which is emitting in the form of wave. This is known as the gravitational waves. So the phenomena is going on in the sky, and here on the ground, the people have developed a laboratory, and that laboratory was known as that particular laboratory is known as Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO, LIGO, LIGO. So the LIGO was set up here with the help of a number of countries. Not only single country have developed it, there are a number of countries which are involved in this experiment. So it is an L-shaped tunnel or L-shaped figure where the waves coming out from the sky, they have been observed and detected. And due to this detection, they were detected, and finally, in 2017, the Nobel Prize of Physics was given to 3 astrophysicists for the detection of gravitational waves. So one Nobel Prize in general relativity was given to Roger Penrose for his work on black holes. Another Nobel Prize which was given earlier to Roger Penrose in 2017 for the discovery of or for the detection of gravitational waves, which is the consequence of Einstein theory of relativity. But Einstein, this is the irony, that Einstein never get the Nobel Prize in general theory of relativity. He get the Nobel Prize in photoelectric effect. Other people are getting Nobel Prize on his theory. Anyway, so these are the few. Now, let's come to the things. Now, since the consequences are very fascinating, so now these things must be explained through certain equations. So now let us see what are those equations. So as you see here, the figure is already there. Please see the next slide. The next slide, please. Now look at the figure which is on the right hand side corner. This figure again shows a Euclidean space where the masses have been put down. So more mass, the more space is cut. So well, on this, suppose this mass here, the more massive, the more space is cut. So as soon as you put any object anywhere, a field is produced. That field is known as the gravitational field. So gravitation is a field phenomenon. As soon as I put any mass anywhere, a field is produced. That field is known as the gravitational field. And as we move away from this field, the gravitational field diminishes. And after a long distance, it will become a flat space. There will be no curved space. The effect of gravity will be removed at a larger distance. So since it is a field phenomena, so there must be some field equations. So the field equations are written over here on the top right corner, the red box. Look at the top right corner, red box. The equations are Rij minus half Rjij is equal to K times Tij, where Rij is known as the Ricci tensor, whose value is written below this box, red box. Rij, this is known as the Ricci tensor. And R, which is coming in this equation, the Einstein field equation, R is known as the scalar curvature. G is the metric tensor, and Tij is the electromagnetic, is the energy momentum tensor. Tij is the energy momentum tensor. Now this is the field equation which is written in the big box here. They are in the presence of matter. That is, what is the field inside an object, that is given by these equations. If you want to know what is the field inside an object, that is when the matter is there, then we have to solve these equations, this equation, the equation which are written over on the right hand side top box. Now if there is no matter, then these equations, they simply become Rij equal to 0. So this is the field equation in the absence of matter. That in the absence of matter means that is what is the field outside an object. Okay. So what is the, or in empty space time. So what we mean by empty space time? Matter is all right. Matter we have got everywhere matter. This is some sort of a matter. You see, this is a matter. So what is the field inside it? So inside there is a energy momentum tensor. So there we have to choose the electromagnetic energy momentum tensor according to the shape and size of this object, according to the matter content. So what is the field inside this gravitating object? That has to be solved with this equation. Rij minus half Rgij equal to K times Tij. Rij is the Ricci tensor, R is the scalar curvature, G is the metric tensor, Tij is the energy momentum tensor. Now look, what are these quantities? They are written as on the left box. So this is what I do not want it to do here, because if it was a slideshow, then you can see each and every box separately. Now everything is visible to you. Anyway, so look at this one. Rij is equal to, this is the Ricci tensor, Rij is equal to partial derivative of this number. This is the Christoffel symbol of second time. Okay. Look at all the other terms. Second term is also the partial derivative of Christoffel symbol. And this is the multiplication of two Christoffel symbol, multiplication of two Christoffel symbol. So four terms are here. R is the Ricci scalar or scalar curvature. This is equal to Gij upper and Rij lower. Rij is the Ricci tensor. Now what is this Christoffel symbol? Christoffel symbol are written in terms of metric tensor G and their derivative, partial derivative of course. And what is G? G is defined as the distance, Gij dxi dxj. So a space in which the distance is defined in this way, ds square is equal to Gij, a space in which the distance is defined in this way, that ds square is equal to Gij dxi dxj. That space is known as the Riemannian space. So this is the distance. Distance means geometry. Okay. So Gij is nothing but the geometry. Now look at the Christoffel symbol. They are also written in terms of the metric tensor. So this means this also represents a geometric quantity. Now look at the Rij. Rij, the Ricci tensor, is also written in terms of the Christoffel symbol. Christoffel symbols are the geometric quantities. This means Ricci tensor is also a geometric quantities. Look at this R, which is the scalar curvature. It is written in terms of Gij and Rij. So Gij and Rij, they are all both geometric quantities. So this means R is a geometric quantity. Now look at the, again, this box on the right hand side, the big box. Rij minus half Rgij. So this whole side, left hand side, is simply the geometry. It represents the geometry. And on the right hand side, K is some constant. We are not worried about this constant. maybe Sahu and Anirudh Pradhan, they worry about this constant because they will deal with the cosmological constant also. So I'm not worried about it. So K is some constant, which is some called as the cosmological constant. And then Tij is the energy momentum tensor. So which is a physical quantity. Now look at this equation, which is on the right hand corner, top right hand corner, big box. So this is left hand side represents the geometry and right hand side represents the physics. So if the geometry is known, we can find out physics. If the physics is known, we can find out the geometry. So in this way, Einstein was able to geometrize the whole physics. So in fact, this is the beauty of this equation, that one equation connects both the things, geometry as well as the physics. So that's why this equation is very, very important. And that's why Einstein theory is very important. That on one hand, if the geometry is known, you can find out the physics. If the physics is known, you can find out the geometry. No problem. So this is the equation in case of when the matter is there. If there is no matter, then what will happen? So the equation will become Rij equal to 0. That is Ricci tensor equal to 0. So in case of empty space-time, we have to solve this equation. Please come to the next slide. Yes. Just a moment, I will just plug my laptop so it will not get discharged. Oh yeah, sorry for the interruption. Well, so now if you look at this equation, the equation which was written on the previous slide, Rij minus half Rgij is equal to K times Tij. Now Rij, the Ricci tensor, it involves the partial derivative of Christoffel symbol. Christoffel symbol involves the partial derivative of metric tensor. So if I put down the value here, simply it will, the first term will become the second order partial derivative of the metric tensor. So if I put down all these things, it will become, this whole equation will become a second order partial differential equation, which is also non-linear. So now we got a very complicated and difficult equation. Second order partial equation in itself, they are not very easy to solve, but they are non-linear also. So it becomes more difficult to solve them. But somehow or the other, we have to solve it. So how to solve it? So for the solution of these equations, we put some simplifying assumptions so that the equation can easily be solved. So the first assumption is that we try to find out the simplest form, the solution of the simplest form of the equation, which is Rij equal to 0. Because here nothing, right hand side, there is no right hand side, only left hand side, Rij is there. So only the Ricci tensor is there. So we have to find out the Ricci tensor, and then we got this some differential equation and solve it. So it will be easy. So this means that the metric has some significant degree of symmetry. So this is the simplest assumption that we can make. So Rij equal to 0 means that we want to solve the field equation for the empty space-time. But what is an empty space-time? Please show me the next slide. But what is the empty space-time? Now look at this one. So this is the example which I have found out myself. When I was a student, most of the time I asked my professors that give me an example of an empty space-time. Because matter is there, okay, no problem. What is an empty space-time? So look here. This is a star, which is our sun. Sun is a star. And we all know that the nearest star from us is the Alpha Centauri. Sun is a star. The nearest star to us is Alpha Centauri. And nearest means is 4.2 light year. This is the distance between the Alpha Centauri and our sun. So distance between two nearest stars is this one. And you may appreciate it that 1 light year is nothing but simply 946 billion kilometer. It is a very small amount, 946 billion kilometer. So this is the distance between sun and star. So between this, we have nothing except our planetary system. Next slide, please. So between this, we have our planetary system, the sun, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and so on, and Saturn, and so on. So all the planets are there. Okay, Pluto is also there. It is an old picture. At that time, the Pluto was considered to be a planet. Now, the Pluto is not considered to be a planet. So here we have got only 8 planets. So, well, okay. All the 8 planets, they are moving around the sun. And after these 8 planets, there is another star, which is Alpha Centauri. So between sun and the Alpha Centauri, there are only planets. Next slide, please. So now, if you look at this slide, I have made a comparison. The comparison is there. This is our sun, and we are comparing all the planets with respect to the sun. So look at the size of the planets from this. Start from the left. This is the Jupiter, and then Uranus, and then Mars, and then other planets. So this is our Earth. You see, this is our Earth. It is located by a point. So if somehow or the other, if I put all the planets in the sun, at least theoretically we can do. All the volumes are known to us. The volume of the sun is also known. We can compare the volumes and then see what will happen. Next slide, please. So if somehow or the other, we put down all the planets here, what will happen? That only the 2% of space of the sun is occupied. 98% space will be empty, will be vacant. So this means that planets which are moving around the sun, they can be considered as a free particle. This means that the space around the sun is empty. That is, the space around the sun or the space between the sun and the nearest star is empty, because the planets are considered to be as free particles in comparison to the sun. So this is what we mean by the empty space-time. So now, the empty space-time is there. So now let us find out the solution of the equation, the empty space-time field equation. So this is Rij equal to 0. So the first solution, the simplest solution of these equations was given by Schwarzschild. Although Einstein has also given the solution, of course, the Einstein has found out these equations, so he was supposed to give the solution also. So he has given the solution, but the method of that solution was very complicated. He used a successive approximation method, and that is very difficult to understand, at least for a beginner. But the Schwarzschild solution, Schwarzschild, he was a Karl Schwarzschild, he was a German physicist. He found out the solution of these equations in a very simple way, very, very simple way. And only just after 3 months when Einstein gave his theory. And you see the dedication of this particular person, that at that time, everybody was supposed to serve in the military also. So he also served in the military. So in World War I, in 1914, he joined the German army and served on both the Western and Eastern Front, and become and raised to the rank of the lieutenant. So while serving on the front, Russia, in 1915, he suffered from a very painful skin disease. But somehow, and the doctor has told him that you will live only 3 months or 4 months, not more than that. That disease was very painful as well as very damaging. So, but in these 3 months, on the deathbed, he managed to write 3 outstanding papers, 2 on general relativity and 1 on quantum theory. So on relativity, he found out what is the field outside a spherically symmetric object? That is the external solution of the Einstein field equation. And what is the field inside the object which has got the symmetry of a sphere? That was known as the interior solution. Now both these solutions are named after him. One is known as the Schwarzschild exterior solution, another one is known as the interior solution. So you see the dedication of this person. He was so dedicated that somehow or the other. So that method of solution we still teach our students in MSc. So what is that solution? You look at this figure. This is a spherically symmetric object. Now this is the simplifying assumption. We suppose that because most of the stars in the sky, they are having the symmetry of a sphere. They are spherically symmetric. So we consider a object having the symmetry of a sphere. Now we want to know what is the field outside this object. Next slide, please. You look at this object. We have got a yellow color object. This is a spherically symmetric object, and the arrows going outside it. This means we want to find out what is the field outside this gravitating object. This means we have to solve the equation which is written in the box, Rij equal to 0, the field equation of the empty space-time. So the metric comes out to be, in the big box, it is written as ds square minus 1 minus 2m upon r to the power minus 1 dr square r square d theta square minus r square sin square theta d phi square plus 1 minus 2m upon r dt square. So here three coordinates are the space coordinates r, theta and phi, because the object is spherically symmetric. So we have got the spherical coordinates and t is the time. So in general theory of relativity, we are using 4 dimensions, 3 of space and 1 of that time. That something is happening somewhere. These are the space coordinates, and sometime that is the time coordinate. So here we are solving the field of a outside field of a spherically symmetric object. So that's why we use the spherical coordinates r, theta and phi, and t is the time coordinate. So this metric describes the geometry of the space-time in the empty space-time. That is, what is the field outside a spherically symmetric object. So this is the field outside. This is known as the Schwarzschild exterior solution. Next slide, please. So now what is the field inside the spherically symmetric object? The spherically symmetric object is here, yellow in the color. This is a spherically symmetric. Matter is filled over here. So here we take the matter content as that of a perfect fluid. So perfect fluid matter is taken, and then we have to solve those equations. Rij minus half Rgij equal to K times Tij. So perfect fluid energy moment tensor is known to us. So we have to put down all these values, Rij and all. So we got a very complicated differential equation. Somehow or the other, Schwarzschild has solved this equation and find out what is the space inside the spherically symmetric object, and the space comes out to be this one. Again, we have got the same coordinate, spherically symmetric coordinates, r, theta and phi, as well as t. So these are the two solutions which are known as this one. But the question is, now once a solution is obtained, this is the general way of finding out, of doing the things. Then once a solution is obtained, people try to generalize it. So a generalization of this solution comes to this one, that in Schwarzschild solution, people introduce the electromagnetism. So then this solution is known as Reissner-Nosdam solution. So this is a spherically symmetric solution of the Einstein-Maxwell equation. So the Einstein-Maxwell equation now read as Rij equal to K times Cij, where Tij is taken to be the energy momentum tensor of the electromagnetic field, because we are introducing electromagnetism here. So this solution is here. That is in Schwarzschild exterior solution. Just add electromagnetism, we will get Reissner-Nosdam solution. So people goes on generalization. Now the problem is here. As we have seen here that earlier, the sun is a star. We all know that sun is a star and it is radiating energy. It is always radiating. So whether the space outside a radiating star is empty or not, this is the problem. Now, if you look at the next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next, please. Yes, this one. Now look at this figure. This is the figure of sun. So if you look outside the sun, so there is a zone which is known as the zone of radiation or radiation zone. So is the space, is really the space outside the star is empty or not? Because there is a radiation zone. So this means that the space outside the, just outside the sun is not empty. This is a radiation zone. So what is the space outside a radiating star, or what is the space inside a radiation zone? That is, this is the radiation zone. So what is the space inside the radiation zone? So that space has been found out by P.C. Vaidya, our own physicist, who was a freedom fighter also. So he considered this star. Now look at this figure. So the region number 1, this is the inside of a star. Region number 2, this is the radiation zone. And after the radiation zone, the space is empty. So we consider a star of radius A1, okay? And then radiation zone, this is another sphere whose radius is A2. So inside the region number 1, we will have, matter is there. So inside this, we will have the Schwarzschild interior solution. So outside this region number 3, the space is empty. So we must have the, please show the next slide. So now we have 3 zones. Consider a star, spherically symmetric star of radius A1. This is region number 1, the inside of a star. So inside of a star is known as the Schwarzschild interior solution. So here the metric is known. This is our first region. Second region is the radiation zone. Outside the star, there is a zone which consists of radiation only. And outside this radiation zone, the space is empty. So outside this radiation zone, zone number 3, the space is empty. This means the Schwarzschild exterior solution is valid here. In region number 1, Schwarzschild interior solution is valid here. Now what about region number 2? Here we have to find out. So Vaidya has found out this solution. And he solved this equation, Rij is equal to rho times Vi Vj. So this is the Einstein equation in case of null radiation. So he solved this equation. In fact, next slide, please. So Vaidya has found out this solution, which is written in red box. Rij, this is the Einstein equation in case of the radiation. 8 pi Tij. Now Tij is the null dust or null radiation, which is given as rho times Ui Uj. So in this case, next slide, please. So in this case, Vaidya was able to find out the solution in this way. So this is the field inside a radiation zone. So field inside a radiation zone, this is known as the Vaidya metric. And it was named after our mathematician, Prahlad Chunnilal Vaidya. He was from Gujarat. So it describes the non-empty external spacetime of a spherically symmetric and non-rotating star, which is either emitting or absorbing radiation. It constitutes the simplest non-static generalization of the non-radiative Schwarzschild solution through the Einstein field equation. So Einstein found out this solution when he was 24 years old only, even before the start of his professional career. So this discovery of the discovery of this metric at the age of 24 gave Vaidya worldwide recognition. So he became famous at the age of 24. So now this I will speak something about this and then try to finish. So there are some important applications of this Vaidya solution. So Vaidya solution became well known in the literature after the discovery of quasars. The quasars are highly energy sources, and therefore their gravitational field cannot be described by the Schwarzschild metric, while the metric Vaidya metric is relevant to the study of such objects. Please, next slide, please. So Vedia solution also depends upon arbitrary mass function ME. Now here, in case, yes,
Participants, please mute the mic.
okay. So now in Schwarzschild solution, we have seen that the mass is a constant quantity. Mass is not going to change. Now in Vedia solution, the mass is a function of retarded time. So this means the mass is changing. So when the mass is changing, so what will happen? So Vedia metric can be used to study the various sandwich and shells of null matter can be constructed from this Vedia solution or Schwarzschild-like vacuum solution. So due to this property, the Vedia solution has been extensively used as a model of a spherically symmetric gravitational collapse of a star and as an external solution describing object consisting of weak conducting matter. As well as it can be used, Vedia solution can be used as an interesting toy model for investigation of singularities and their possible removal by quantum effects. It can also be used for studies of various formulation of cosmic censorships, conjecture on both quantum and classical level. If the quantum effects are considered, then the black hole will emit a thermal black body radiation. This is known as Hawking radiation. So since Vedia metric describes the gravitational field of a spherically symmetric object which emit the radiation and losing its mass as it evolves. So Vedia metric is not in equilibrium and evolves with respect to time. So it is evolving with time. The same thing is happening with the black hole. The black hole, they also evolve with respect to time. So if we want to consider the emission if we want to study the emission of Hawking radiation, then the Vedia solution is very, very important and is a useful tool. Next slide, please. Now, once the Vedia solution was obtained, there are so many generalizations that came into light. First one was that in Vedia solution, electromagnetic field was introduced, and that solution was known as the Vedia-Bonner solution. And then it was further generalized, was known as the Kerr-Shield solution and Kinner-Slay metric. So many persons have done a lot of work on Vedia metric, L.K. Patel, Tikekar, Ivo Hall, and so many persons. Even our group at Aligarh Muslim University, myself, my students, Bilal and Musawir, they have also studied that how to generate the gravitational field of Vedia metric. Now, one more thing that I want to say about this Vedia metric, you see the dedication and the continuous efforts of our past workers as that of Professor Vaidya. So it may be interesting to note that, yes, please, next slide. It may be interesting to note that the evolution of Vedia metric took almost 10 years. And nowadays, what is happening? In every month, the people are writing a paper. Every month, people are writing papers because for every paper, there is a journal. Or for every journal, there is a paper. So nobody is caring about the quality. They care only about the quantity. And they are bound to do it because of our foolish promotion system. They need the person who are sitting behind the table. They need how many papers you have in international and national journals. This is the first question they ask. And when I was facing the interview of my professorship, one fellow asked this silly question to me, that how many papers do you have in international journals and national journals? So I told them that this is a silly question. So then he told how you can say that this is a solution. For me, a journal which is publishing from Nepal, Sri Lanka or Bangladesh, it is an international journal for me. And the journal which is publishing from my own country, this is a national journal. It doesn't matter whether our journal is good or not, or whether their journal is bad or good. So this is a foolish question. Ask them what is your work? Is it a good work or a bad work? Only you can tell them. So if it is a good work, it doesn't matter where it is published. So my submission is that if you are writing 3 or 4 papers per year, then at least you publish one good paper in your Indian journals, so that we can lift the standard of our own journal. Because what we are doing, we are publishing our very good paper in the foreign journals and very bad papers in our own journal. So we are degrading our journals and raising the standard of the foreign journals. So still we are not freed. We are still slaves. So, well, this is what I feel. No, it is not necessary that you also agree with me. But my submission is that somehow or the other, you have to do something for your country also. So for your country means I am a teacher. So what at least I can do? I cannot fight on the border. So what I can do, I can publish my good work in my own journal, so that the standard of my own journal can be upgraded. Anyway, so now look at the work here. This is what I have inferred from Vaidya Saab, because I have met him so many times and I have great respect with him. So he told me many clues, and one of them clue is that, well, you write down so many papers, it doesn't matter, but publish one good work in your own journal, so that the standard can be raised. Anyway, so you now look here. So it may be interesting to note that the evolution of Vaidya metric took almost 10 years. In 10 years, he make a complete detail of his metric. The first paper was published in the Indian journal Current Science, which is published from Bangalore, Indian Academy of Science. In 43, it was published in Current Science, volume number 12, in 1943, which was followed by a paper with his supervisor, V.V. Narlikar, the father of J.V. Narlikar. Narlikar was the person who introduced relativity in India, in Banaras. So he worked with his supervisor, and then he published this paper in Nature, which is a very well-known journal, 1947. And then a complete version of Vaidya metric was appeared in Proceeding Indian Academy of Science, another journal which is published by Indian Academy of Sciences, Bangalore. So it was published in 1951. And finally, another version of the solution in terms of different coordinates, another solution was published in Nature in 1953. So first paper was published in 1943, and the last paper of this series was published in 1953. So it took almost 10 years. 2 of his papers, they published in Current Science and Proceeding Indian Academy of Science. And I am happy to say that I have got papers in both these journals also. I am a fan of Indian journals. It doesn't matter if somebody cite my work, it's okay. If it doesn't cite, no problem. I usually prefer to publish my paper, but since last so many years, I have to just publish my papers in foreign journal also, because of my students, because they have to get some fellowship or other things, something like that. Anyway, so what I want to say that if you are publishing 3 or 4 papers per year, at least you publish one good paper in your own journal. So after a few years, our journals will be on the higher side. Anyway, so once now you see, still I can take 5 minutes more. Okay. So the next solution in the list is known as the Kerr solution. In the Shorty solution, we have considered the spherically symmetric object, and that spherically symmetric object, for the case of, for convenience or for the sake of simplicity, we assume that this spherically symmetric object is at rest. It is not moving, it is at rest. But all the stars in the sky are moving. They are rotating also. Sun is also rotating. It is also moving. It has got the linear motion as well as the rotational motion. So most of the objects are moving as well as rotating. They are not static. This means that if you want to consider a rotating star, then how you find out its field? So the rotation also destroys the next slide, please. The rotation also destroys the spherical symmetry. So now the come into the picture. R.P. Kerr in 1963, he find out a solution that if the rotation is there, then what will be the field outside a rotating object? So he find out the solution. Next slide, please. So he find out the solution like this. The solution which is written in the box, red box. So this is the metric outside a rotating object. So this is the solution of Einstein field equation for empty space-time. So here m is the mass. In this equation, m is the mass, a is the angular momentum. Again, we have got the coordinates. So m is the angular momentum per unit mass of the body. Now, Kerr was unaware that what he has found out. He simply find out a mathematical solution of Einstein field equation that if the rotation is there, what will happen? So he obtained this solution. Later on, when the black holes were discovered, it was found that the black holes are also rotating. So in fact, this solution of Kerr become the solution of a rotating black hole. That is, what is the field outside a rotating black hole? So it becomes important. Now, once this solution was obtained, this solution was obtained in 1963. So Newman was an American astrophysicist. So when he saw this solution, Kerr solution, he thought that, as usual, once a solution is obtained, its generalization can also be obtained very easily. So he thought that if we add electromagnetism in this, or the charge in this rotating solution, what will happen? So he gave this exercise to his MSc students. There were 8 MSc students at that time who were studying relativity theory with him. So he gave them the exercise that you add charge in this Kerr solution and see what will happen. So all the students, they were very sincere. Somehow or the other, after some time, they find out the solution. And Newman himself also find out the solution. And then they sit together and then they form a paper of 1 page, which was appeared in Physical Review, I think, which appeared in Physical Review D. So it was a 1-page paper, and half page was the author list, all of his 8 students and he himself. And then he gave the solution, which is now known as the Kerr-Newman solution. Next slide, please. So now Kerr-Newman solution is simply the charged version of Kerr solution. That is, you have got what is the field outside a rotating charged black hole. So this solution gives the gravitational field outside a charged rotating black hole. So it becomes very important. So here we have got only 3 real parameters. One is the mass, E is the charge, and A is the angular momentum. So now it is known that a black hole can be completely characterized by these 3 real parameters. One is the mass, another is the angular momentum, and the third one is known as the charge. Okay, so mass, angular momentum, and charge. Only these 3 parameters are required to characterize a black hole. So this is known as a no-hair theorem. The black hole has no hair. This means that a black hole can always be characterized by only 3 parameters. One is its mass, another is angular momentum, another is charge. So I think I should stop at this point. Already I have taken so much time. Anyway, there is a lot more to say, but anyway, I stop myself here. Anyway, so if you have some question, but can you show me the last slide? Okay.
Sir, you can take your time because your lecture is so much interesting and we don't want to lose this lecture incompletely. So for some minutes, you can also give the lecture.
Okay, for me, no problem. Yeah.
Okay, sir.
For me, no problem. I can do it. No problem. So at least 2 or 3. So these are the few of the consequences. Now, another consequence is that of Einstein theory of relativity is about the Big Bang model. And this concept was given by George Gamow in 1940. So he gave a concept that the universe was created with a big explosion at an instant at a finite time ago, say t equal to 0. So the universe burst out into existence out of a point. At that instant, all the radiation and matter poured out from this point in the form of a big explosion, and the debris of the explosion moved apart with large velocities. So can you show me the next slide? With large velocities. So this is how the concept of Big Bang model evolved. So the instant t equal to 0 may be regarded as the event of creation. So there was no universe, no observer, and no physical law before t equal to 0, because there was no before the beginning of our universe, because once upon a time there was no time. So it may evolve like this. Show me the next slide. Show me the next slide. Well, on the left side, so it is started from a point. So this is the defect, that it is not in the slide presentation mode. So otherwise I could have explained it more clearly. Anyway, you are seeing the full figure. Otherwise it should come like this, that it is started from a point and then it
Hello.
starts. Ji.
Sir, I am Raju Bhakta. Sir, I have a question.
Yes.
In solar system, the differences among the planets follow any sequence, like as Fibonacci sequence, etc., etc.
So
Sir, actually, I am saying to you, in solar system, suppose the difference between two planets, like as Mercury, Venus, otherwise Venus, Earth, otherwise Earth, Mars, the differences follow any sequence.
no, that I am not aware of it, because I am not that particular type of person who is looking on this sequence and series. Okay, there may be some pattern. Okay, so I have not taken this into account in my research. Anyway, so you please consult a series or sequence person. There are so many pure mathematicians. They can tell you about the Fibonacci sequence.
Sir, astrophysics is a part of a mathematics. I know. So I am just.
No, astrophysics is not is neither a part of mathematics nor a part of physics. It is somewhere in between. If you got your MSc degree in physics, then it is a part of physics. If you got your degree in MSc mathematics, then it is a part of mathematics. So this is the situation in India.
Oh, achha,
Anyway,
okay.
I do not know the answer. The main thing is that you consult the expert. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay. No issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
You consult
Thank
the
you.
expert with some sequence and series person.
Okay.
Anyway, so now look at this slide. Next slide, please. No, the previous one. The previous. One more. The previous one. Yes. So we have a Big Bang. Okay. The instant t equal to 0 may be regarded as the event of creation. So there was no universe, no observer, and no physical law before t equal to 0. So we do not know from which matter the universe was evolved and from where the matter came. Still, it is a question to all of us. So we simply say that there was a simple singular dense point out of which the whole thing was created with a big explosion, which happened at some time t equal to 0. So all the radiation and matter that poured out from this point in the form of a big explosion, and the debris of this explosion move apart with large velocities. Okay. Then where is the burst? That I don't know. Nobody knows. Still the astrophysics people are looking for this, that how this thing happened. It happened, it's okay. It happened, that is confirmed. But how it happened, still we don't have a satisfactory answer. Anyway, next slide, please. So this is the scenario of the Big Bang. I think you have missed, in between you have missed few slides. Okay. Before this slide, what is that slide? The previous slide. Okay, after this slide. Anyway, so some slide are missing over here. Anyway, so just show the slide that you were showing me. This one, okay. So this is the picture. So now the time elapsed since t equal to 0. This is known as the age of the universe. And approximately it is 14 billion years. So the Big Bang happened at 400 billion years ago. So now at t equal to 0, the Big Bang is started. At t equal to 10 raised to the power minus 43 seconds. T equal to 10 raised to power minus 43 seconds. Just after t equal to 0, the first particle was created, which is now known as the Higgs boson, and for which we are searching for. So for this, we have built the Large Hadronic Collider and then try to find out the answer, this first particle. So the early universe, just after t equal to 0, was largely made up of high intensity radiation rather than the matter. And due to subsequent expansion, the intensity of the radiation reduces more rapidly than the density of the matter. So thus in the early stages, the universe was radiation dominated, while the present universe is in the matter dominated stage. So please show me the next slide. So we are in the now we are in the matter dominated state. So this means that as the early universe was filled up with only with radiation, so this means a faint microwave background radiation should exist also at the present. What does this mean? That suppose this is a block of iron. Okay, suppose mathematicians, they are crazy people, they can suppose anything to be anything. So suppose this is a block of iron. Now if I heat it more and more so that it become orange, and then ultimately it become blue. When the metals are heated, then when they are more heated, they become blue in color. So when it become blue, I put down this piece of iron in a room, in a closed room, from where the heat of this iron cannot go outside. So after 1 month or 2 months, just I see this block of iron, it will become cool. So what has happened to its heat? Because when it was kept, it was very much heated. So what has happened to its heat? Where it has gone? The room was closed. So where it has gone? This means it is somewhere in the corners of the room. So the same thing is applied on the universe also. In the beginning, it was very hot. Now it is very cool. Something 3 Kelvin. 3 Kelvin means minus 270 degrees. 273 degrees centigrade. So it is very cool, very cold. So what has happened to the heat, which was there in the beginning? So this means this heat is somewhere in the corner of the universe. So if somehow or the other we can detect this heat, this Big Bang theory will be confirmed. So the theoretician, they give a limit that this microwave background radiation should be of 3 Kelvin. Okay. That is, whatever radiation is hidden in the corners of the universe, it must be of 3 Kelvin. So theoretically, they predicted this one. So now it is a matter of experimental physicists to find out whether this number is correct or not. So in 1965, there were 2 astronomers, Penzias and Wilson, they find out this number. They find out exactly what the theoretician has predicted, that the microwave background radiation is of 3 Kelvin. Next slide, please. So and then of course, once this radiation was there, so immediately they got the Nobel Prize in physics for their discovery of this microwave background radiation. But the scientists are not satisfied easily. So some scientists thought that it may be wrong. Let us try to do this experiment in another way again. So there was an experiment which spanned over 7 years, between 2003 to 2010, and it is known as WMAP, Wilkinson Microwave Anisotropy Probe. Wilkinson is the name of the scientist who initiated this study, this probe. So there was a satellite and something was sent in the space, a spacecraft which measured the difference in the temperature of the Big Bang remnant and radiant heat and the cosmic microwave background radiation. They scan the whole sky, and in the 7 years, they find out the same answer. The answer which was given by the Penzias and Wilson. So 3 Kelvin. So show me the next slide, please. So this shows that the Big Bang theory is now confirmed. Now look at this slide. In this slide, if it is visible to you very clearly, then you can notice that there are some red spots here. Apart from the yellow, there are some red spots are also here. So these red spots, this is the heat which is spread throughout the uniformly, and this is known as the cosmic microwave background radiation, and this is of 3 Kelvin. So Big Bang theory is now accepted. It is now past the experimental verification, so it is accepted. So our universe was created out of nothing in the form of a Big Bang. So I think I should stop it here. That's enough for today. So please show the last slide. Now, before this one, previous one. Previous to this. Well, so this is the advertisement of some of my book. If you want to know more about what I have given today, so go through this book, Tensors, Mathematics of Differential Geometry and Relativity. And this has been published by PHI in 2015, and then second print came out in 2018. So you can go through the website of PHI and get this book very easy. Now the last slide. As I have started the quote of Einstein, so I finish also with the quote of Einstein. So scientific advancement is a journey, not a destination. Our trip continues with each discovery. Einstein says that stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your fantastic lecture today. It was so interesting, so knowledgeable for all of us. And since it was a time bound, so this lecture is finished on time. And I'm sure all participants didn't like to end this lecture incompletely. Really, if we got another chance to listen to you, we will not lose the chance. And now, I like to apologize for wrong pronunciation of your name. That is, your name is Professor Jafar Ehsan, sir. Yes, it was not a Ehsan, it was Ehsan. And I was also felt that in the spelling of Ehsan, there should be double A. But I think that maybe you have not write that double A in the spelling of the Ehsan. So please apologize.
Just a moment. देखिए,
Yes.
दोस्त को किसी नाम से भी पुकारें, फूलों की खुशबू ही आती है, नाम में खुश नहीं रखा.
Yes, sir. So again, I like to share my personal view to you. I was crazy to listen you, and so I was praying that time to God to resolve our technical fault in the today FDP, so that I can listen to you. Once again, thanks a lot, sir, for accepting our invitation to deliver this fantastic talk. Now, if the participants has any query, you can put your query before Ehsan sir, and otherwise we can conclude today's session. Any participant who has any query? I think it is already 6:21, so there is no participant. But in the chat box, I have find one question. It was, just wait a minute. Um, in the chat box, there was a question before the time. There are so many chats. Yes, it was, where is burst?
Hmm.
It was a question that question was, Tiwari ji has put the question, where is burst?
Where is Earth?
Burst, B-U-R-S-T, burst.
First. Okay, we only know the time, we don't know the place, because before that burst there was no space. Only then it started expanding. So
Okay.
there was no actually space. So this is still a puzzle, that where that burst was, where the Big Bang was happened. When it was happened, we call it as T equal to 0. How it happened, that everything is created out of nothing. And what was before this Big Bang, nobody knows. Still we do not have an answer to this question. But we are trying to find out the first particle that was created just after Big Bang. And if we could find out that, that will be our very nice achievement.
Thank you,
Still we
sir.
are looking for that burst. Yes.
Thank you for answering the question. Any other question? Because there are so many researchers are there with us. If there is any other question, otherwise we can conclude. I think there is no question. Sir has given a very, very good talk today. Now, at this moment of the time, I am concluding our today program, and we will meet again tomorrow between 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. for some another talks by our eminent speakers. So, bye-bye for all of you, and we will meet again tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.